Hello, this is Case 2, Gap Inc. 2019 study by Ryan Tabakis, Austin Souza, Daniel Padilla, Eduardo Sanchez Suarez, Parveen Basi, Diane Kabakang. Brief history, Gap Inc. website and products. We'll be going over other businesses they've had, like Old Navy and Banana Republic, Gap's challenges, the value chain analysis, their core competence, go over the Vero models, our recommendations and potential risks, and timeline on when to implement.
Hello everyone, I'm Dan Padilla, and I'll be discussing the brief history of Gap. The Infamous Company was founded in 1969 by Doris and Donald Fisher. More specifically, the date was August 21st, 1969, in San Francisco, California. The reason why Gap was founded was because Donald Fisher purchased a pair of jeans, but they were too small and had difficulty returning the pair of blue jeans. This inspired Donald Fisher to open stores with no quibble returns policy. The after-sales service was both generous and unique and helped grab customers' attention. Gradually, Gap began to expand. By the 1990s, the Gap chain reached over 1,300 stores, most which were located in malls. In addition, under the assistance of Nikki Drexler, Gap expanded internationally. Stores began to expand to countries like England, Canada, France, and even Brazil. The company even expanded into its brand, such as Gap Baby and Gap Kids. By 1997, Gap started selling online. It was considered to be one of the first few retailers that did so, and became one of the largest online retailers. The company had sales of over $500 million and strive to integrate the online channel with the typical retail experience for customers. And this summarizes the brief history of Gap. Now we're going to talk about Gap's fun facts. In 1969, Gap sold vinyl records. But the thing is that this was kind of odd for the company. The company was known for selling clothing and apparel of all sizes, but not vinyl records. However, at this time, the store was aiming to sell items towards college students, and at this time, vinyl records were very popular. The second fun fact is that Gap got rid of ugly clothing in the 1980s. And the third final fun fact, which I thought was very interesting, was that it popularized khakis in the 1990s. These are some of the fun facts about Gap Inc. Now, I'll pass this on to my colleague.
In the early 1900s, Drexler tried to make Gap more fashionable, but failed. Since he failed, they had an enormous amount of surplus clothing. To get rid of the inventory, they decided to start discounting the items. But since this wasn't a normal occurrence, Old Navy had to be created. In 1983, Drexler was inspired by the movie Indiana Jones so much that he opened Banana Republic. The store sold safari gear at first, but it was not successful, so they became a luxurious high-end store.
The Gap has faced a variety of challenges over the past few decades. Although they were once known as one of the most popular clothing retailers, the popularity of their brand was short-lived. This can all be attributed to various reasons that include leadership, slow transition into new technology, as well as not making e-commerce a priority in their business model. Their inability to innovate and adapt to the changing environment, especially in the fashion industry, played a large role in its downfall. The Gap had to place their orders 12 months in advance, which made it very easy for them to miss the next fashion trend. And for those that are always looking for something new, the Gap was simply unable to deliver. The Gap had the most success during the 1980s because they were offering something different to customers that made them popular during that generation. A large part of that popularity was a result of effective marketing and celebrity advertisements, which made their clothes a huge hit. Unfortunately for them, these trends are only temporary. While their competitors knew the potential that online shopping would have for clothing retailers, the Gap seemed to think that expanding into new markets and opening up more locations would be the most effective way to increase revenue. This eventually forced the Gap to offer discounts on their clothing, which was one of the reasons their sales were suffering. Eventually, they had to start closing down locations from the cities that were underperforming the most. And the fact that they now have fewer locations in addition to customers paying discounted prices was making their profit margins even tighter. Till this day, the Gap continues to struggle year after year as their online and in-store revenue continues to drop yearly. They continue to estimate a positive growth for the company that simply does not end up translating over in sales. So they certainly have work to do if they expect to turn things around.
Value chain analysis. Within the case, we found a couple of primary and supporting activities. Starting with primary activity, first we have marketing and sales. Gap designed their own clothing line and heavily advertised that more than lines it carried in stores. Next, we have after-sales services. Gap offered a no-quibble return policy. This allowed sales to increase rapidly and helped the company grow. After that, we have supply chain management. Gap manufacturers were located mostly in East Asia, and they have thousands of plants. This allowed products to be made and delivered to stores every few weeks. Last, for primary activity, we have design and store operations. All Gap stores were designed small. They kept the store small to coincide with their narrow range of clothing. Support activities. The first activity is research and development. In the early 2010s, Gap started observing intermix to stay on top of the latest trends. And then we have information systems. In 1997, Gap was one of the first retailers to sell their products online. Along with that, the Gap strived to ensure a conventional retail experience. Value core competence. In the case, we found 3 core competencies. The first is that the Gap had specialized seasonal merchandise, and at the end of each season, they had a major sale to free up space for the next season. The next core competence is that the Gap appealed to all customers around the world. No matter what size you wore or what your budget was, there was something for everyone. Last we have is how there was an increase of appeal on an international level. China had 34 new stores opened, and Brazil had 75.
Hello, everyone. My name is Austin Souza, and I'm going to be talking about the Viro analysis. So for Gap, one of the things that was very valuable from the very beginning in 1969 was that Doris and Donald Fisher centered their business around a no-quibble policy for returns. This was because Donald and Doris Fisher had issues when they tried to return a pair of Levi's to a department store earlier that year. And so it kind of spawned their idea to start the Gap brand and their Gap store. Another thing that was valuable for the store was their seasonal merchandise brands, which changed every quarter. And that brought in new sales for them each and every season. These policies were very valuable to Gap, and it helped them thrive at the very beginning of their inception, which gave them competitive parity. At one point in time, the no quibble policy was pretty rare for Gap, and compared to its competitors, it was a very unique policy because many competitors were worried about losing sales and worried about losing revenues by offering this similar type of policy. But foreign competitors who were able to get access to resources at a cheaper price than Gap were able to use a similar form of policy, and this did not lead to a sustainable competitive advantage for Gap. It was only a temporary competitive advantage. In terms of the ability to imitate the Gap policy, as the previous slide mentioned, it was actually pretty common for competitors to imitate the no quibble policy, which also led to Gap's downfall. Many stores copied Gap's return policy. They even copied shop layouts and the way merchandise was displayed, which kind of led to the decline in Gap's uniqueness throughout the years. So because it became somewhat rare, it led to just a temporary competitive advantage till the decline of the 2000s. Finally, was Gap organized to capture value? Gap Incorporated was organized from the beginning. They had 3 different branches of their company. There was Gap Inc., Old Navy, and Banana Republic, which each specialized in different sectors of the market. Banana Republic was a high-end luxury retailer. Old Navy was a budget store which offered cheaper clothing to a larger populace. And Gap was a middle ground store which offered a little bit of everything. Gap failed to maintain an advantage of internet sales when other companies started to do the same to compete with companies like Amazon, Target, and Walmart. Many different leaders so far have also let Gap down since its inception in 1969.
In the past, Gap has used celebrities to advertise their clothing, and they would sell out in about 3 days. So I'm recommending that they use well-known celebrities and other social media influencers to help them advertise. And then on top of that, they should make their own social media accounts like Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and just follow the trends. And then for TikToks, they can strategically place their clothing and make them look extra cute or stand out compared to their competitors who probably aren't making TikToks or tweeting about their new fashion. And then I would also recommend to use research on what's trending instead of guessing what might be the next new trend or what might be the new fashion for this season or next season. It's better to research instead of just guessing. And then Gap also needs to stop opening new stores when profits rise, because just because at this moment in time you're doing well, it doesn't mean that you will continue to do well in the future. And continuing to open stores just to close them later is a waste of money. And then hiring a well-known designer will also create a lot of foot traffic into the stores. Potential risks with our recommendations. So celebrities might cost too much money, and then social influencers might not want to advertise for Gap. And if they do, they might ask for free stuff from Banana Republic as well. And they might not even follow through. They might agree to the contract, but change their mind last minute and waste time And then if they do follow through with it, and if the influencers or celebrities do something scandalous, Gap's image will be affected and it will cost a lot of customers not to shop there. The lag time between decision and production could be too late to capitalize on current trends. And then not being able to mass produce items like they were before. Not every single store will have the exact item. And then following trends hurts innovation and creativity. Research also costs a lot of money, so maybe they won't always be able to research what's trending, what's gonna be the new fashion. And then customer feedback may be inaccurate for many reasons, like they could lie, they don't even want to take the survey, or they just want to do it fast so they can get the reward that comes along with doing the survey. It can be many things that it might not even be helpful in the end. It may take a month to work with influencers to negotiate a contract. Celebrities might be a little faster, but more expensive. But the gain would be instant for Gap. And then the feedback from customers may take 6 to 8 months to actually implement because they would have to go through all the surveys, see what can actually be done, and then approve it and then actually implement it.